Welcome back to Cinemation. Today, I'll show you a drama thriller from 2009 named Afterlife. Beware of spoilers. Elliot Deacon is preparing a corpse for funeral. After talking to the body, he took a photograph with an analog camera. Anna Taylor, a middle school teacher, and Paul, a lawyer, are having an affair in their apartment. She is not enjoying it and seems sad. Paul lights a cigarette, and Anna jumps into the shower. While Anna is showering, Paul and Anna begin to talk about their relationship. He wonders if she is happy, despite her claims that she is Anna. She is clearly anxious and depressed. After her fight with Paul, she goes to work. She arrives at the school to find Jack, a young boy being bullied and intimidated by his older classmates. Jack is saved by her and she asks about the little chick that they have in their classroom. He asks Anna if the chick is still alive. Anna then comforts him and explains that the chick was only afraid afterward. We also see a behind the classroom desk. She appears unhappy and deeply in her thoughts. She continues working and takes pills. She leaves school later and sees the lights dimming in the hallway. As the hallway becomes dark, she panics and runs towards the door. It becomes so scared that she is almost ready to scream when Jack arrives and turns on the lights. They leave the school together, and she is happy to see him. Jacqueline tells Anna that she is going to the funeral of her piano teacher. After she leaves Jack, Anna politely declines to go with her. Anna attempts to take more pills, but the box is empty, so she runs to buy more. She stands in front of the pharmacy. She spots a hair salon, and she paints her head red. She arrives at the funeral. Elliot, who is standing next to the body, is having a conversation about his wife. He then approaches the body and begins talking to a woman. The dead person turns out to be her former piano teacher. Elliot watches Anna and plays a little trick with her. She is looking at her body, surprised to see her piano teacher exhale. Anna looks at the body. Anna leaves the funeral service and heads to her car, while Elliot creeps at her through the window. It was a long night. Anna will be going out on a date to Paul, who will surprise her by proposing before dinner. They agree to have fun and not fight. Anna is struck by Paul's purchase of a costly bottle of wine. She asks Paul if there is a special occasion. Paul begins to explain how his employers offered him an improved job. When he thinks he is breaking up with her, they get into an argument. Paul doesn't get the chance even to propose to her. They were furious at the outcome. Anna is told by him that he's just like his mentally unstable mother. He chases her, but she starts to drive into the night with metal music on. She is so upset that she doesn't notice that a truck is driving by her, and instead of learning how to drive, she dials a number on her cell phone. Anna suddenly shouts and takes the wheel. We don't know what she does. The next thing we know, she is in Elliot's basement lying on an embalming desk with a bruised head and wearing a red short dress. Elliot approaches her and begins to cut her clothes. She suddenly wakes up. She is then told by a mysterious funeral director that she was in an accident with a car and that she is officially dead. He doesn't believe her. He shows Anna the death certificate. Anna isn't convinced and wants her to move, but she can't. Elliot laughs and says that everyone is in denial the first time they wake up at an autopsy table. He puts Anna to sleep and turns off the lights. While Anna pretends that she is having a nightmare, she screams at herself to get up. Paul wakes up in their bed to find Anna missing. He is wondering if Anna left him, and he regrets the fight last night. Paul tries calling her, but Elliot doesn't have her phone. Paul tells the answering machine that he wants Elliot to bring him to Chicago and not to break up. Elliot doesn't answer the call. Instead, he puts his phone in a paper bag. Then he creepily opens a cupboard containing dozens of paper bags. Elliot then takes the photograph he took from his dead piano teacher and attaches it to a wall with other similar photos. He begins to talk to the picture of Anna Paul and goes to find his girlfriend at school, but she's not there, so he returns to her mother's house. His mother informs Paul that his daughter is dead. She also blames him for letting her drive through the rain. Paul, in shock and in tears, hears his mother say that her daughter never liked him. Anna insists that she isn't dead and begs Elliot not to make her leave while he stitches the bloody wound on Anna's forehead. Elliot insists she is still alive and injects a yellowy liquid into her neck. Anna falls asleep as Elliot rings the funeral home doorbell. Elliot goes downstairs to greet his mother Anna, who is sitting next to her daughter. She doesn't cry. She blames her mother for her death and leaves her mom all alone. She doesn't want to leave without expressing her last wish. She wishes Elliot would return home and have his natural hair dyed black. Next, we see Jack cutting a newspaper article on Anna's recent accident. Jack's mother stares at the TV screen, looking dead, and is passively and bluntly observing. She tells Jack she must pick him up from school, but the kid doesn't seem to have any reaction. Hannah wakes up at the funeral home Elliot, and she is cleaning the embalming equipment upstairs. She quickly checks her pulse and hits the table to feel pain. She stands up and attempts to dial the basement phone. The phone is busy as Elliot is using the upstairs number to confirm her funeral details. Anna starts screaming for help, but the doors are locked and nobody is there. Paul, at the same time, arrives at the funeral home requesting to see his body. Elliot won't let him because Paul technically isn't family. Anna hears Paul's voice as they fight and begins screaming, but with no success because he cannot hear. Elliot returns to the basement and finds Anna lying on the ground. He gives vague answers to Anna's questions about Paul, but instead she turns the questions back at him. He starts asking her if she ever loved Paul, and then he convinces her to stop living. Elliot refuses to give up and convinces her that she is in denial. Paul calls the police after the quarrel at the funeral house. He's a lawyer. Many of the officers know him. He is allowed to have a soda from the soda machine. He uses this opportunity to sneak into the area where they keep cars safe from accidents. He wanders around the cars, trying to find Anna's. He finds Anna's and walks around the cars, but he can't find it. He then takes to the driver's seat and begins crying. He notices a bloody bobblehead near the window. He experiences a hallucination that Anna is standing near the car. He is scared, but luckily a friend of his comes to comfort him. Paul takes his bobblehead and heads home. Paul is experiencing a breakdown, so it takes a knife in order to lock the basement doors. As she approaches the basement door, she notices another person. Whitehall is the old woman, and she becomes anxious and begins to rethink the situation. She feels deep inside that she doesn't want to die after seeing the dead woman. This is what's happening. Elliot walks into the room. He adjusts the temperature and Anna drops it. Then he tries to kill Anna with a knife she took, and like a master manipulator, Paul challenges her to put the knife in his mouth. She refuses to do it. Paul then explains to her how he talks to her. Because he speaks with the dead, he says that it is his job to assist them in their transition. He starts shouting at her, wondering why she insists that she is alive when she doesn't have a very special life. Anna is depressed and lies on the table. Soon, Anna wakes up to see Miss Whitehall standing before her. Anna is now confronted by an elderly woman in black who is combing her hair and telling Anna she isn't ready. A dark, metallic door suddenly appears in the corner. It opens and the door opens. Slowly, she puts her hand in darkness, and then another pale hand grabs her and pulls her inside. Anna is suddenly trapped in a mysterious dark place with blue lights when the door closes. A little girl, a wounded child, emerges from the shadows to tell Anna she is disappointed in her. She also learns that the little girl is actually her and that it might be better to die. Anna realizes that this vision was a dream and returns to the embalming station. Angrily, she gets up and pushes all the items off the shelves, screaming in pain. The basement is above. Elliot is making arrangements for the funeral of his white house. He is finishing the last decorations. Jack approaches him and asks him when Anna's funeral is. Elliot is fascinated by the child who leaves him. He finds everything in the basement. He shouts at Anna, asking why she moved everything off the shelves. Instead of asking for answers, he finds Anna in shock and wonders if she is still alive. Paul was in his apartment, washing his face, when Anna suddenly appeared naked. He turns to her and she starts to rip her heart out of his chest. He screams as her torso is bleeding. In the basement of the funeral homes, Elliot brings his mother's prepared burial gown. Anna claims she isn't ready to die yet and tries to have a conversation with Elliot. However, she is actually trying to steal his keys. He leaves when he leaves. She attempts to open the basement doors. Elliot realizes that his keys have gone missing shortly after he has left in his car. When Anna opens the front door, he quickly returns to his house. He doesn't see her and she runs back to the kitchen. She leaves her keys behind, so she can't go anywhere else since all other doors are locked. Elliot does not suspect that she ran away, but he hears noises and decides to search all the rooms. Anna grabs a knife from her kitchen and starts running around the house looking for an exit. Anna finds a phone and attempts to call Paul Elliot. Paul is walking quietly through the house, trying to find Anna, but he answers the phone and begins talking to her. He thinks it's a joke and hangs up. Elliot continues to convince Anna that she's dead while she holds the phone. He shows her the mirror and she begins to believe that she's dead. Jack is outside and notices this from the window. Elliot is aware of this, but he smiles because he sees an opportunity for him to manipulate the child. They soon descend to the basement where Elliot washes Elliot's hair and removes the color according to her mother's wishes. Elliot is taking care of Anna and Elliot receives a call to prepare a funeral for the body he has just picked up. Paul still grieves and he visits Anna's school to retrieve her belongings. She has many things in her drawers. He discovers postcards and photos of him, including one that he took at a picnic. The memories start to roll in his head and he starts crying. Angry and sad, he takes everything off the table. Elliot, Anna, and their dog are watching this as Elliot prepares another body. Elliot puts plastic in the eyes of the dead man to keep it shut. Elliot asks if Paul wept when he saw her, and Elliot lies and says he didn't want. In truth, Paul never even saw her. Elliot tells her why people die. He then injects the yellow liquid into her neck, rendering her unconscious. Paul, a little boy from school, tells Jack that he saw Anna in a red dress at the funeral home. Jacqueline claims she saw Anna in a red dress, but Paul insists Anna didn't wear one. Paul loses patience when Jack suggests that perhaps Paul doesn't really love her. He slaps the child in the funeral home. Strange Elliot starts to talk to his friends as he looks at the photos he has taken. He suddenly sees a police vehicle in front of his home and gets scared. The police officer comes to the door. He wants to see the body. Elliot draws back as if he's planning an escape strategy, but it turns out that the policeman was the new dead body's brother. Elliot relieves himself and takes the officers to the basement. He looks at his brother. The policeman observes the changes in his body. Although she is not conscious, her head moves slightly. Elliot is asked by the police to spend a few moments alone with his brother. Elliot then moves toward Anna's corpse. He seems to suspect she is alive, but he only wanted to touch her. Anna Elliot is confused by what he just witnessed as the policeman touches Anna Elliot. Elliot becomes angry at the policeman and he leaves. Elliot begins obsessively applying makeup to the dead brother, making it look like a clown. He calls the body, but the body doesn't respond. Jack doesn't lose heart and returns to the funeral home. Elliot appears and Jack runs towards the body. He scares him. Elliot informs the child that dead people are attracted to Jack because he has a gift. He tells him that they both have the same gift as Lazarus, who raised Jesus. Jack hears him tell his mother that he was the first to speak to him. He then offers to show the child how to use his gift. Driving policies require a red dress, just like the one Jack described. He recalls Anna wearing a red dress, and he quickly drives to the funeral home. He finds Elliot at the funeral home printing his bushes and insists that he saw Anna. He tells him Jack saw her through the window. Paul explained that the boys were a regular visitor to the funeral home. He also has vivid imagination. Paul becomes really mad and runs towards the basement screaming Anna's name. Anna awakens at this exact moment. Anna doesn't respond and believes she is dead. Paul walks away and demands that the police search the funeral home because he is only grieving. The police don't consider him serious. The funeral home. Elliot prepares Anna for the funeral. Anna is now at the table. Elliot is preparing her for the funeral. She begins to open up, telling Elliot about all of her regrets and how she wished she had a different life. She lived in a monotony until then, and she never allowed herself to be loved. This was because of the lessons she had as a child about how love can only harm you. Elliot asked her what would have made their lives better. She replied that she just wanted to be happy. Elliot becomes angry and begins to question her life and relationship with Paul. He opens the door, tells Anna to leave, and offers her another chance. Anna suffers a terrifying hallucination, and she remains at the doorway without moving a muscle. Elliot says to Anna, "People aren't afraid death, they fear life." They return to Elliot's table, where he is finishing preparations for the funeral. Later, he returns to the table to prepare the graveyard for Anna when Jack suddenly appears. Elliot asks the kid for his advice. Elliot then shares his life philosophy. Elliot says he can see BODS, which are people who aren't necessarily dead but wander aimlessly and make life miserable. Jack is told by him that this is his duty. Anna is still waiting in her box the next morning for final funeral preparations. Before receiving the injection, Elliot asked her to look at herself in the mirror once more. She gives him the mirror, and she exhales. Her breath condenses on the glass as she breathes in. Anna realizes that he has been manipulating her in line since the beginning. She is actually awake. She falls asleep as Elliot administers an injection to her. The funeral director takes a photograph of her. At the funeral, Anna's mother is also crying. Paul kisses Anna and takes the engagement ring off her finger. He begins to cry, gradually accepting the fact that she is dead. Elliot doesn't want anyone to find out the truth, so he closes the box quickly. Elliot places his picture on the wall, where hundreds of photos are displayed. It's all of the people he lied about and killed. Meanwhile, Anna is able to regain consciousness even though she is buried alive. She screams and hits the box lid, but no one can hear her. Paul becomes very drunk and upset during the funeral dinner. Elliot confronts him about his incredulity at Anna's death. Elliot, instead of comforting him with words of comfort, dares him check if Anna is still alive. He doesn't have much time. Paul quickly left the dinner and began driving towards the graveyard. Jack puts the little chicken into a box and buries it alive. This is to inform Paul that it's better that way. Paul is driving recklessly, drunken through in his grave. She is shouting in the box and rapidly losing her breath. Paul continues driving despite seeing an ambulance car behind. The ambulance car is also on the same road. The funeral director sits in his car with Jack and plays classical music. The child asks if it's over. Elliot confirms. Paul then runs towards the grave to start digging it up. He kisses her and takes the box out of his hand. Paul wakes her up and soon realizes that she is dreaming. He looks up and sees Elliot sitting above him at an embalming table, cutting his shirt like Anna. Paul is convinced that he is dead. He tells Paul that he was in a car accident and never made it to the cemetery. Jack appears and watches the whole process as Paul protests. Elliot finally injects Paul with an embalming trocar. Paul screams in pain. Subscribe to our channel and enable notifications to see more videos like these. Thank you for watching.